V-Rising wasn't quite the game I was expecting, and I think it's better for it. However, a holdover of that realization is understanding this part of my brain that engages with games in an unhealthy way. I don't have a problem, I can quit any time, of course, but I think playing V-Rising has brought to the center of my brain a very particular issue I think I have with clicker games, and something very telling about my own neurology, or at least the patterns I've formed over my life. I like V-Rising, I think I see problems with it that put me off too, but most importantly, I see something I'm not sure I want to see in my Steam library with 300 hours plastered beside it. Once we get into those big hour count numbers, I think those hours come less from intrigue and more from compulsion. I'm not arguing against the idea of compulsion necessarily, but more so revealing something about my own relationship to it. I've struggled often to get into live service games, mostly because of how jarring and invasive FOMO marketing is, but also because there are too many vying for your attention, and once you really start to focus on them, they sort of lose their charm. A quick raid on Destiny or win in Fortnite is a medium to get some form of human connection or the next rung of the battle pass. I've spent what I'll say is a shameful amount of time in tycoon style games, almost certainly made by children in Fortnite, partly because it upgrades my battle pass, and partly because the rate at which you see new items, experience, and weapons is so consistent. V-Rising isn't Fortnite. It's not a live service game, but it does have some of the same mentality. If a 10-hour single-player game is a sprint, V-Rising is a marathon, and one I almost certainly have the lung capacity for. However, I can't help but feel like the pool of gaming lactic acid might just put me off running more. Numbers Go Up is a dangerous game when you kind of stop caring about the number. Here's what happened when I played V-Rising and what it told me about myself. Speaking of numbers go up, just a few weeks ago I sat short of 900 subscribers and now I'm rapidly approaching 1500. I think I'm at about 1380 right now. This is wonderful as it not only shows there's a little space for me here to share thoughts on games, but it also encourages me to keep putting them out there and get weirder and more niche with it as I go. If you'd like to support, subscribing would greatly help me out. One more thing while I'm here. I talk a little about the concepts parallel to addiction in this video, so please consider that if addiction is a difficult subject for you. However, I'd like to say up front that I am in no way intending to call V-Rising addictive, but I do use the word in this video and talk about the concept in order to enunciate why compulsion and habit formation doesn't equate addiction. On that same note, I do not in any way mean to imply that the comfort-seeking part of my brain, searching for the familiar, is that. I merely mean to demonstrate a part of my brain or habit forming that V-Rising managed to hit at and the parts of myself I saw through that. First, before getting into those grander thoughts, let me tell you a little about V-Rising. It's a survival crafter slash semi-action RPG where you play a freshly risen vampire hunting for blood, building a castle, and taking down more and more powerful enemies until you become the ultimate vampire lord. The story itself is more a backdrop for the gameplay, and it rarely pauses your ability to keep playing, or at least it doesn't do so in the traditional sense. We'll get a little more into that later. Taking place after the last of the vampires are pushed into hiding, effectively, you are both a wicked creature and kind of an underdog, or should I say underbat. The basic gameplay loop has you farm resources, gather blood, hunt down animals and humans, then return before the sun goes up. Being out under that harsh glare will wipe you out in mere moments, and going out in the day requires hopping from tree to tree, only getting into battles when you are sure you will win, and cowering back when you are overrun. You fittingly feel both very powerful thanks to a set of skills and a bit of a weakling thanks to there always being a bigger fish. V-Rising's reduced price plus robust multiplayer combined with fairly deep and ever deepening crafting mechanics make it a good background game, and here is where that feeling took hold. After the first couple of hours, you set up a base and have goals, and the way to finish those goals is collecting resources, funneling them into forges, woodcutters, etc., and then just sort of waiting until they're done. When it comes to forges and woodcutters, things aren't made instantaneously, which encourages you to go hunt while you wait. Then, over time, the amount of blood in your system begins to run dry, which weakens you and will eventually drop you to just 1 health. It's a constant game of spinning plates that gets more intense the further you go. As well as everything mentioned above, you get different qualities and types of blood from different enemies, so you're encouraged to swap around frequently, and different types of blood give you different traits. However, it can be quite a slow process, especially in tougher servers where death holds you back. Effectively, once you create a castle, you have to keep it pumping with blood essence, and this happens in real time. Log off for too long and your base can be pillaged. This is kind of necessary when you take up space in a server, but it also sort of means you can't log off for too long or you're out. These barriers are fixed by private servers, of course, and I actually end up spending more time here than online in the end, as the loop of the game encouraged a more laid-back atmosphere, and I wanted to mostly just chill. See, I'm regularly on the fence about survival crafters in general. I have liked a few, Enshrouded has tons of promise, I still regularly go back to the likes of Minecraft, but lots of them I've played I've tuned out rather quickly, and V Rising certainly enunciates part of my problem. Survival crafters often feel like they're too active for you to leave and too slow to fully grab me. I constantly feel like I'm waiting for some resource or grinding towards some sort of goal. This mechanism exists in V Rising with its resources. You get iron or refined wood at a pace that means you are often waiting, but not at such a small pace that stepping away doesn't cause major inefficiencies that are compounded by the need to get blood essence and keep your body topped up with blood. Given that not enough of either can lead to your death, there's always a slight threat that stepping away for a moment will kill you, and that means I never feel like I can just tune out. The blood essence problems become less frequent the more you play, as you can set up farms, and even the latter factor can be mitigated somewhat, but there's this part of my brain that feels like I'm constantly just an inch away from where I want to be. First, V Rising does this by making you build your castle walls. Once you have an enclosed space, it puts a roof on top which shields you from the sun. However, not making the space big enough can mean tearing down those walls to put them back up again, which feels like a waste of time and always makes me cautious of putting down machinery or chests. The V Rising developers have clearly thought a lot about this specific part of the gameplay loop because you can do all of that without wasting resources. Then it gives you goals to build certain things, many of which often require a few resources which you can get by furthering a web of enemies. Killing bosses gives you unique tech and recipes which then feeds into the goal. Importantly, this isn't topped off by story moments and feels almost never-ending. Not because there is a never-ending supply of bosses, but because there's no end point. You're just encouraged to play and join more servers and continue to play. The map is rather large and you can't fast travel with some kinds of necessary items, so you can often fast travel to the boss and then have to trek back, risking the light of the sun on the way. You can set up further castles, but this requires resources which again often can't be teleported. Everything in V Rising is drip fed slowly to you, putting blockades in the way, but it's not boring as such, so much as a necessary hump to get that carrot it's been dangling in front of your blood-starved face. I often find survival crafters a bit tough to get into, as it's an oddly repetitive genre, often relying on the same basic skills, resources, and functions. Once you've played a crafting game, you have a good idea of what the first 10 or so hours of the game looks like, and V Rising manages to work around this somewhat through its Diablo-esque combat and exploration. And this brings me back to clicker games. When I talk about clicker games, I'm specifically citing Cookie Clicker, the game where you make cookies by clicking, then spending cookies to upgrade how many you make from a mouse click, and earn the ability to passively create cookies as a result. That was a genuinely horrible sentence to say, and I hope I don't have to talk much more about cookies in the future. Loading up Cookie Clicker to get footage for this video, I was hit immediately by a shiny new achievement for clicking, then one for making 1.1 of a second, then one, and then on and on and on. Now, the whole point of that game is that eventually you can just leave it on to earn cookies itself, but then who will be there to buy an extra grandma to up cookie efficiency by 1 every time? If you miss just 4 or 5 minutes, you've suddenly lost 2,000 cookies. I could walk away now, but I'm so close to getting 400 cookies a second. Oh, did you see that golden cookie? Clicking on it maximizes efficiency, and it gives you an achievement. Where the likes of Balatro or Dungeons & Degenerate Gamblers feel so engaging because of our frankly poor understanding of probability and the never-ending belief that the next run will be the one, clicker games I think feel particularly exhilarating to those who love efficiency. It's the opposite of gambling. It's not uncertainty, it's consistency. Or at least that's the case for me. Every second not watching that number go up is one where you could be adding a few more materials or building more machinery to make even more items. It is worth noting though that all games, media, and practically any art intended to hold your attention can make the right neurons fire. This is something amped up in clicker type games, but it's not unique to them. It's the subway surfers at the bottom of the screen interpretation of why people play games, the rat activating the pleasure center in its brain with just a simple click. Of course, we're not rats, and this gives us some agency, but it also gives us cognitive dissonance. We have a wonderful ability to lie to ourselves. The sunk cost fallacy is an element of what keeps people playing most games. In some forms, it's the actual cost, in other, it's our time. I don't use the word addictive when I talk about games, and there are a few reasons for that. I think it can play a weird role in stigmatizing what it means to be addicted to something, and more importantly, I think it can trivialize it. But also, it's both lazy and feels a little too close to marketing speak. I think I've yet to come across a use of the word, including previous times I've used it, and not thought there's a more eloquent term to describe what I'm thinking about. So no, I'm not saying V-Rising is addictive. I don't think it's fair to the intent of the game. The feelings I'm describing aren't me searching for some sort of systemic critique. I'm more so trying to express how it affects me, and in turn how I affect myself playing these games. It's also not inherently a bad thing. I didn't neglect my duties playing V-Rising, I just felt this itch in the back of my brain, the same one that keeps me up at night sometimes or makes me see the next boss as I close my eyes. It's simply to express that consuming thought that comes from the loop of V-Rising and games like it. And this part of my brain can be a good thing too. It helped with my degree, it helps me commit to my goals, it helps me put out these videos. If I'm not writing music, I'm writing videos. If I'm not writing videos, chances are I'm working on some sort of creative pursuit, and I find myself unhappy if I'm not chasing something. See, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Number Go Up can be all-consuming, but it's also ideological. It's an approach or a lens to actualize yourself in. I love to play guitar, but part of my love is just having something to do with my hands. There's no expectation to make sense of it, there's not an end goal, it's just something that sits. And in the same sense, survival crafters are often just a vessel for conversation, it's not necessarily the point of it. There's a reason why these games are so popular among groups of friends, and I think part of that reason is that they facilitate a connection, and that feels so important. The story of V-Rising is mostly those told among your friends. And this brings me back to the sunk cost fallacy. I don't think we beat it by beating the game, especially since the reason people play V-Rising isn't to see that final boss vanquished. Some wouldn't even consider it beaten until a certain amount of hours or until you've jumped into the PvP. I think we beat it internally by taking our time as our own and realizing time spent isn't wasted, and maybe calling it spent isn't even the right word. We are used to experiences ending, but sometimes we just have to be content when we make our own ending. And though we all have to play the clicker, we don't always have to indulge it. I don't think I'm done with V-Rising, but if I am, that would be okay. Thank you for listening to my video on V-Rising. This one ended up weirdly personal. That wasn't what I intended to get at when I started writing it. I just, Oh, while I'm here, thank you to the publisher for providing a code for critique purposes. I went to play it and I had all these thoughts swimming around, and after I'd left it for a few weeks, I realized this is how I felt about it. I felt more conflicted than I thought I would, but not really because of the quality of the game, but the qualities of the game, which is a strange feeling. Either way, if you like this, please like. If you would like to comment, please do. I realized in the last video that if I put a please subscribe line in early on, I get subscribers. Who knew? But I guess I tended to put them at the end because I felt like if you're watching all the way through, maybe you're okay with me saying please subscribe. Turns out people who watch videos want to support you, and I noticed people subscribing really early when I said it, which is kind of sweet when I think about it. To think someone who's seen a minute thinks yeah, this person deserves a subscriber. So that's nice. I've had the best month I've ever had on the channel. I think it's almost doubled in a month, which is astounding to me. And right now the goal is to hit 1.5 thousand subscribers, which I can't believe I'm saying out loud. If you want to help me hit that, then subscribing would really help. Thank you very much for watching, and let me know if you play V-Rising. I'd like to know if you have a similarly weird cookie clicker prone brain like I do, and if this is a common feeling, because I don't know. They're popular for a reason. I told myself I wouldn't hit the table this time. I've somehow done that the last two, and I had my hands up so as not to hit this standing desk, and I scraped the wall with my finger instead. There is something wrong with me when I start into my little post-video yap session video. Wow, this isn't a video right now, this is a recording. My brain is everywhere. I don't know what happens to me. They should study this. Anyway, thank you for watching, thank you for subscribing, and I guess I'll see you next time.